Hey everybody, Dan here with Pain Free You. Today I wanted to talk about a topic that's come up quite a number of times over the years. Figured I would address this in video, so I don't think I have before. Question is this: should I track my heart rate, my glucose level, and my sleep? Which are things that you can fairly easily track. I'll get to that in a minute. But we're going to say hello to Mr. Finn here. Hey, buddy. What are you doing? Yeah, he's chilling out here. I was going to shoot outside, and all of a sudden it started to pour. So, lots of rain. Hope everybody's doing well. Enjoying the weekend. Happy Sunday. That's when this will post. Even though you may watch it a different day. Happy whatever day it is, where you are. All right. So, inevitably, I will get a question from somebody, and I just did a little while ago, which kind of spurred on this video topic. Somebody saying, hey, my heart rate went up to here, and then it came down to here, but my anxiety was really high, and I started freaking out about it. I've had my heart checked, and it checks out all okay. It's down here now, but I'm still really anxious about it. So the first thing I'll say is heart rate is variable. It goes up, it goes down. It goes up with fear and anxiety. It goes down with calm and rest. It goes up with activity, physical activity. And it can even go up with mental activity. You start getting into a really anxious mental state. Your heart rate can go up, and it often does. So should you track it? Well, I think the only two reasons we want to track our heart rate is if we're doing cardiovascular training and we're seeking to improve things like, I think the term in cycling is the VO2 rate, which is like the oxygen rate. And I don't know exactly how that's calculated. But look, if you want to track your heart rate during cardiovascular activity so you can improve it and get it lower even though you're exerting more energy, that's a good reason to track it. The only other reason that I see to track it is if you've got a medically declared health issue, meaning your doctor says, we got to keep an eye on this. I want you to wear, a heart monitor for X amount of time so we can track it. All right? In that case, obviously makes sense to track it. But if you get like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit and you're saying, well, let me watch my heart rate, and you're a TMS type of person, meaning kind of prone to perceiving danger where it may not be particularly dangerous, I don't believe tracking your heart rate is beneficial. Not at all. As a matter of fact, the only thing a normal person can get out of a constant 24/7 heart rate monitor is fear and concern and worry and questioning. And, oh my goodness, my heart rate just went up to here. Is there something wrong with my heart? Right? I don't think it's beneficial unless you are training cardiovascularly from a sports perspective or have a medical reason to track it because it's been dictated by your doctor. I don't think tracking your heart rate is necessary. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. Try not to freak out about it, especially if you've had your heart checked. Not a concern. Why monitor something that is variable, goes up and down with all sorts of stress, even diet, like a lot of high sugar, caffeine, it can change things. So I wouldn't worry about it. What about glucose levels? I think the same things. If you are diabetic, pre-diabetic, it's smart to check your glucose levels. Or if you are undergoing a very specific dietary change, such as a keto diet, and you are trying to make sure your glucose levels stay down, it can be useful to track it for a while. And at one point, I was doing the keto diet, and I was tracking daily. And it got too much. because I would find what's interesting is even glucose levels can shift with stress. How do I know that? Because I would check it every day. My glucose numbers were usually quite good in the mornings, but sometimes I'd wake up and I'd have a bunch of messages from somebody in a real state of chaos and real lot of fear and really struggling, and Dan, please help. And that stress and that, the fear for the person would absolutely cause my glucose levels to jump. And it can also jump with exercise. So, unless you've got a medical reason to check your glucose, or you are undergoing a very specific diet where managing your glucose levels is necessary, I don't know that the average Joe needs it. Now, for some people, it may be beneficial. Certain health conditions, some serious health conditions, we want to keep the glucose levels down. But unless you've got a medical reason to do it, or you're doing it specifically for a dietary reason, and you're really trying to gauge the impact your food is having on that level, because the lower the glucose level, the less insulin you're going to have. And insulin is kind of a fat storage hormone. So, again, unless you've got a medical reason or a very specific dietary reason, I don't think we need to check our glucose all the time either. Because, again, if you're just checking it all the time because you're curious and it goes up, you might be like, oh no, what's going on? More fear, more worry, right? Now let's talk about sleep. I know these Fitbits and these Apple Watches and these sleep monitors, they're the new thing, right? Everybody's got electronics connected to them, telling them all sorts of data that I'm not sure they need, right? I'm not sure you need it. Because if you start tracking your sleep, because you've got sleep concerns, do you think knowing exactly how many hours of sleep, deep sleep, lighter sleep, interrupted sleep, do you think that's going to create more calm and safety around sleep? Or is that going to generate more fear and worry about sleep? Because I know people who are like, I only got 6.5 hours of sleep. And then they decide for themselves that that's not enough. And the brain goes, oh no, we better rest. Let's create some fatigue. And so I'm not a sleep scientist. I'm not a glucose scientist. And I'm certainly not a heart doctor. But to me, it just makes sense that unless you've got a specific medical reason, let's say you're in a sleep study because you've got apnea and they're considering giving you a CPAP, for example, right? There's a medical reason to possibly monitor your vitals and your glucose and your sleep and your heart rate, right? But if there's no medical reason and you're not doing something specifically for sport or for dietary reasons, where monitoring the glucose can be educational in the interim time until you can kind of get your diet dialed in or your exercise dialed in. I think for the average person, tracking this stuff is just a recipe for more fear. And what does more fear do? It creates more danger in the brain. And what does more perceived danger do? It increases symptoms. So I don't think there's any benefit to it. I don't know if that makes sense to you folks. If somebody else can think of another valid reason to track your heart rate, your glucose, or your sleep, let me know. But if you are already concerned about your sleep, for example, and you are trying to optimize it, I don't know how knowing that you only got 4 hours sleep last night is beneficial. We generally know if we've got a decent night's sleep or not, but the perception that we're not sleeping enough can create a whole bunch of fear, which makes it that much more challenging to go to sleep restfully and trust that you're getting enough rest, you're getting enough sleep. So, unless you've got valid reasons, I don't know that I would recommend, tracking your heart rate, your sleep, or your glucose levels. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I just wanted to address this question from somebody who was kind of freaked out about a slightly elevated heart rate, even though they've got their heart checked. And this can be particularly challenging for people with POTS because in some cases the heart rate can go way up. But unless your doctor is suggesting that you need to do this, and if it gets above a certain level, you need to do that, I'm not even sure that in the case of somebody whose heart rate jumps when they get up or start moving, that it's beneficial to know just how high it's going. Stress, fear, perceived danger can actually change all three of these things: sleep, glucose levels, and heart rate. So why use a system to create more fear and attention and even hypervigilance if you don't have a real justified reason to do it, medically or dietary-wise, if you're trying to accomplish a certain thing with your glucose levels? So that's my take on it. Again, not a doctor here, just Dan's perspective from my thoughts on this TMS, perceived danger symptom world, and also my experience from, dietary changes over the years. I used to check my glucose and even my ketones daily, and sometimes even after meals, just to see the impact. After a while, it just became cumbersome. I didn't need to do it because I already had an idea as to how I should be eating. So, in any event, love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.